Welcome back to Enlighten Up for episode 53, Love as a Sacrificial Lamb, Birthday Banter, and Honest Reveals. So everyone, it is our birthday today. We are officially 1 year old and we couldn't be happier. We can't believe how this podcast is taken up, and we have you to all thank for it. So thank you very much for being here. If you've been with us since the beginning, then thank you very much. And if you've just joined in, welcome to our podcast. We are four friends who really just want to share the spiritual journey, whether we're presenting the skeptic point of view or the fringe point of view through what we've actually experienced. And we love bringing on guests. And so today we're going to give you a little bit of birthday banter and talk about the year in review. We're going to give you some honest reveals about what we thought about past topics and past guests. And we'd actually love for your input, your comments on what you think, if you had some similar insight, or maybe you have some different insight. So let's get into the show and find out what we had to say. Welcome back to Enlighten Up, everyone. You're listening to episode 53, and 53 happens to be our 1 year anniversary. We have now been doing this for a year. So happy anniversary, Lisa, Michael, and Brian. This is like a big deal.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, when we... What did you say, Michael?
Where's my cake? I was expecting that.
Brian was supposed to bake the cake since he's the baker.
I am the baker. Although I'm gluten-free now, so...
You're the gluten-free baker.
My cakes probably suck now.
Yeah, I'll pass on that.
Yeah, I'm going to pass too. So, this is really cool because I remember I was literally, Michael, at your condo when the birth of this idea came out. And I was like, you are actually on a trip while I was still at your condo, and you came back, and I'm like, so we're starting a podcast with Lisa. And,
I'll go over to Miami.
Yeah. And we really didn't know where it was going to go. We just knew that we laughed a lot at our conversations and thought it would be fun to share with people. And so it's really kind of taken on a whole nother life that I don't think any of us were anticipating. And especially over the last few months, we've had incredible growth in our audience. And we just thought, to all of you listening, that it might be fun to do a year in review and kind of talk about what we've learned, where we've been burned, and, favorite episodes and things like that. So who wants to go first? All right, Lisa.
Don't everybody talk at once.
I know.
I didn't
Lisa,
want to talk over anybody.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Lisa, what are your thoughts about the podcast from the birth of it to where we are now?
Oh, well, at first it just, as you said, we just thought it would be fun to share, these interesting conversations that we have with each other. And I feel like it's really grown into a lot more, especially with because of all the guests that we've had. We've had just so many amazing guests that have taught us so much. And I think it's become a lot broader than I thought it would be, and a lot more in depth. And I've learned a lot of things. So I'm really excited about where it is and where it's going to continue to take us.
Yeah. And Michael, how do you feel? Because you were here from the beginning.
Well, like I said, I enjoy talking to all of you guys. Although I'll tell you what, when I actually listening to the podcast and the episodes, when I'm not on it, kind of like listening as a observer, I realize that we sound very opinionated, and like we all four of us know and have the truth, and it can be a little bit distracting to my ears, because like sometimes I'm really trying to turn over a new leaf, and I've spoke about this in the past in past podcasts of not being certain, because I think that's where our problem is in this world and online, is when we're certain that our point is correct and we're certain that you are wrong. And that's where I think a lot of people get into these rage and outrage kind of syndromes that's going on out there. So I realize when we're listening to our podcasts, and all of us are guilty, including myself, we get into those, I'm certain I'm right and I'm certain you're wrong. And we have so many opinions, but that's kind of the fun life about our podcast. Although if we just are cognitive of our opinions being opinions and not facts, then it can be probably even more smooth in the future, I would imagine.
Interesting. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I am always right.
There's that.
So there's that. No, I not having been on for the entirety of the year, but to hear different points of view, and the truth is out there. I think that's what they say in the X-Files episodes. The truth is out there. And I think it's interesting that we're trying to help bring issues to light, whether I believe in things or not. It's always been interesting ideas, and it's opened my mind to things. I've done experiments, as we all know, from some of the ideas, and then shit happens, and then it's hard to dispute things. But to me, I mean, if I were to say anything contrary to what Michael just said, I wouldn't say that I'm always certain about how I feel. But to me, and I hate to put it on where I'm from, being Missouri, which is the show me state, it's like I just want to see it, and I think that's what's so interesting for the things that I've experienced.
What is the number one thing that you've experienced, if you don't mind me interrupting? Because I'm kind of curious.
Well, I think the two most immediate ones are one. I don't even know if we've really talked about it on the episode, but it's Lisa's channeling of light language. I mean, for her and I, our first date involved light language. And there was this one time she called me. I was like 1 a.m. We had just started dating, or maybe we weren't dating yet, and she was just speaking light language. When she first started speaking light language, she couldn't control it at all. Now if it comes, she can kind of say, hey, just give me a break, I'm not ready to do this. But when it first happened, she could be in a meeting, just all of a sudden just start speaking light language. It would just come over her. But it was really late one night, it was around 1, and she called me, and she just was speaking light language. And she had this sense that it was a message for me. Sometimes that happens when she channels as well, that it's a message specifically for, or it's a message for a specific person. So she said, I got this message for you. You're just going to have to listen. And as she's speaking light language to me over the phone, I was getting this sense of, because, I don't remember if she's spoken light language on the air before, but, it's a soul language. You can't understand it with your mind or your ears. And so I'm hearing these sounds, and I just got this clear idea that this is for my daughter, for Kaya. So I kept kind of saying to myself, when she's done, just tell her that it was about Kaya. When she's done, tell her. I was kind of saying that over and over so I wouldn't forget, because I didn't know how long it was gonna last. And then all of a sudden she stops and she says, they tell me you know what it's about. And that's the kind of proof that I need for who I am as a person. And the other one was the experimentation to send good thoughts. And I sent, positive thoughts for a week, and, Nicole really challenged me on this one, because I wanted to do it for, some famous person. And Nicole said, no, you have to, do it for somebody, that you know, that you have a relationship with. And I did it for a week, and a week to the day, I got a text from my ex-wife saying, I've got some positive news or something like that. And that was the weird thing, is what I think I remember during the episode, Nicole says, try it and something positive will happen. And that was the word that was used. Hey, something positive happened with your daughter. And it was, those two types of things, I can't discount that. And it's never that I don't believe in what you guys believe in. It's more, I just need to see it for myself.
Well, looks like we're down to one skeptic, guys.
Well, no, that's not fair, because I feel
I'm the
like
most skeptical person
Yeah, no, I think okay, well this is you made a very great point because it really does boil down to your own personal experience. There are things, Michael, that you've experienced that Brian hasn't.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but like I kind of backtrack on the stuff that I experienced. I definitely downplay it now that time
Sure, of
has
course you
been
do, because
between.
that's a very normal thing to do when time has passed and you don't have any progress to move forward further in it.
Yeah,
That happens
yeah.
all the time. And it's within our mind to constantly doubt, if you don't have consistent proof showing up. But, the reality is, I mean, and you've said it yourself, you kind of backed away from it all,
I
right?
didn't back away. I know, I just kind of more like, uh, oh, I don't know about backed away. Maybe it was more like, I just didn't, I don't know. I can't really put my words together because I don't want to say I backed away because I just want to follow my own path more like, I don't really want to sit there and, you know what it was actually? Let me say it this way. With all of our guests and all their contradictive personalities within each other, like one guest says this, one guest says that. It's not like everybody has. It sounds like it's just pure chaos out there. Nobody's got their shit together on what is actually going on out there. And so when I sense that, when I get confused, like if I'm gonna be buying something, I'm getting confused from multiple different salespeople, I walk away. I walk away. And so with all of our guests, I walked away. I walked away from them and what they've been telling us to more like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this on my own.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's like I'll figure out this path, and I'll take little ideas and things like that here and there, but more on like, I guess I'll use that discern thing that you guys keep talking about, but more like what I feel like is correct.
I think that's a really important lesson that a lot of people end up learning. And I think you learned it really early on versus I think like for me, my discernment, I didn't really realize that until 20 years into this whole journey. So for you to be learning that within your first year, I think is pretty amazing. And to have this the knowing within you that you just want to stop listening to all the outside things and just do what feels right for you, I think is a very strong quality to have when you're on that journey.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some things that interpersonally that the just doing this podcast has forced me to reflect upon myself, and that has helped me internally with controlling ego and stopping the judgment, but also it reflects on relationships I have out there. And I'd look at that as a big positive. So even as a skeptic, even if I, believe Lisa is just making up gobbledygook when she talks about stuff, things like, our podcast still does help me when it comes to just how I interact with people on a daily basis, including
Well, I
myself.
think that's an interesting point because I would say, and this might be an overgeneralization, but I think people that are in Michael's and my camp, more of a skeptical viewpoint, don't necessarily understand or believe in a lot of these spiritual aspects that we don't look inward. I never did. I never bothered to think about what was going on around me and okay, really, examining this. We talked about this on that episode, that was about my, experience. That I never stopped to look back and was like, okay, this is what happened. I believe this, and you don't have that inward reflection, the self-reflection. You just kind of just bounce through life and you're just fed the shit. You listen to the news, you watch the TV, you read the paper, and you just take your shovels full of shit that life gives you and you plod along. Versus what I see that's just incredible about you, Lisa and Nicole, is that you guys, you don't just enjoy every moment, because I feel like I really enjoy every moment of my life, but you guys are really into it in a way deeper level.
Wow,
That's a great point. That's a great point that you've gotten that out of this podcast is amazing. And I think that what this has grown into that I guess I didn't realize from the beginning is the people that we've touched. and some of the comments that we've gotten back and our followers and how much they enjoy the show and that it has opened their mind and to an awakening, or maybe they were already on this journey, but we've really helped to guide them a little. And that has been the part that makes me the most excited about it, is that we're actually, touching people's lives and maybe helping them to see things just like Brian said, even as a skeptic, just the fact that you're actually looking inward more, or even know that that's something. I know that we've had conversations where, about that. And Brian's like, yeah, that never even really occurred to me before, but now I think about it.
Yeah. And I think, I was going to say, I think that also what's really cool about the show is that a lot of our audience members, through the comments, and I get like Facebook messages and emails, and people tell me how it's so nice to listen in on people saying and talking about experiences that they're having, but they can't share with anyone else. And so they don't feel crazy. Like, I know we joke about it on the show, like, Michael and Brian think like Lisa and I are batshit crazy, or crackpots, as Michael calls us. But it's and although there's some truth to what they're saying, at the end of the day, you guys are really accepting of who we are and don't really make us feel that way. We just joke about it. And so when people can come in and listen in and know that they're not alone, and that there are other people out there who are experiencing similar things, or have feelings about certain things that are similar to them, it's really nice to know you're not alone. And I think that's huge.
What's really cool? What you guys both said, you're talking about our listeners. I've never really, again, because this is not me to look back and reflect, and I'm doing it right now. I'm reflecting on this podcast. It's pretty fucking cool that people listen to us talk. I mean, there are people that look forward to every week that this thing comes out, and they like on Thursday, they can't wait for Thursday, and they listen. I was like, there are people that are not the four of us that are wanting to listen to us, and it's cool.
I feel sad for them, and I'll keep them in my prayers.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay.
I just wanted to say, piggyback on what you were saying, Nicole, about our guests. We've had such a great array of guests as well, like the ones that you said, have told their stories for the first time on our show. Marcus Spellbound, and even Jim Derek's, like some of these things that people didn't want to share with their loved ones because they didn't, or their friends, their coworkers, they don't want people to know. And it's helped them to be more accepting of themselves.
Yeah.
And then we've had guests who are very much out there writing books about this stuff and traveling around the world and speaking about it. So I just think that I'll give the credit to you, Nicole, for finding such great varied mix of guests that we've had on the show. Good job.
Well, I'll be honest, some of them have really come to us, and reached out to us. And so I think we're all putting out that energy and creating some sort of beautiful vortex around the show that's attracting who we need to attract to at the time that they're coming in. And I know maybe Brian and Michael don't agree with that, but that's how I feel. I feel like we're all putting a certain level of energy into it. And I think we've got a really great recipe that not other podcasts offer. Like, I really like that we offer varying viewpoints. I really like that we can get a little heated with one another and then in the same breath be laughing 2 seconds later. I think that's a really positive thing. And I think, with our guests too, what you said, Lisa, I'm so overjoyed and feel so blessed to be able to have these guests on, whether they're real authorities on the topics that they're talking about, or they're just, sharing their experience for the first time. I don't think there's any hierarchy of shared experiences that are worth listening to and less worth listening to. I think everyone matters and everyone's journey is just as important as the other. And I think there's something raw and beautiful about someone speaking about it for the first time. But then there's also like great insight that comes with those who've been doing this for a while. And so I think it's nice to have that mix.
Absolutely.
So since we've talked about what we've learned, does anyone want to share with us something that maybe you've been burned by on this episode, or not this episode, but this podcast?
Burned?
Yeah. Like, have you felt burned by like some of the
By
stuff?
you, yeah, call me an asshole. In the best episode that we had, granted it was about, yours truly. But and we talked when you came out with that name. Lisa and I were both, you texted it over to us in the morning. I was like, how awesome is this name? And I was just like, that's not an awesome episode name at all.
Title.
Yeah,
But-
Brian was a little butthurt over being called the asshole. But
Just in print, he likes to joke. We like to joke about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it could because that's kind of how that was the difference to me. It's one thing to joke about it, and you hear the joking in the voice when you're listening to the podcast. There's another thing when it's big bold letters. Brian is an asshole. And I didn't. But whatever. I am a public person now. I mean, we're on a podcast. We are public people. People listen to us. So I'm just the talent.
And what great talent you bring, you and your entire ego. It's lovely.
That's right.
Lovely.
I know.
Michael, what about you? Is there anything that's happened throughout the year where you feel, maybe it wasn't on the podcast, but anything that you feel burned by?
Oh, well, I would think the term burn is not what I would describe. I'd be like maybe try to be fooled with. And so Michelle Paisley, the Power of 10 lady, I completely don't believe in anything that she has to say because of what happened when the quote unquote Power of 10 were talking to me. And I use a turn of phrase that is very, rare. I said my friends were like a revolving door in my life. And when she came out of her Power of 10, trance or whatever, she was talking to me about it, but she claimed that she has no idea what these Power of 10, say through her, mind or whatever. And then yet she used the exact same phrase, the rotating door, when she was talking back to me. And I found that very interesting. And that was enough for me to call BS on what she was saying. She also said that, if it's true or not, as long as I am bringing hope to people, that's what matters. I'm like, okay, whatever. But like the same mannerisms, the same lengthy speech that she would give during the Power of 10, it was the same when she would talk in person. And so I just really, in my mind, go, okay, I'm not going to believe anything she has to say, which is a knock against channeling in the first place, which I never really believed anyway. I was a stupid skeptic.
I gotta say, I agree with you wholeheartedly that that's one of the hardest things for me to understand. And I know you guys talked about that in an early episode, about fakes and charlatans.
Right,
and
but
stuff
when
like
you're
that.
channeling, and I know that we have brought this up, that the channel is only as good as the vessel that it's coming through. So if someone's channeling, some of their personality and mannerisms and things are obviously going to come through. They're the vessel in which it's
but
coming.
She was lying. She was at that point, in my opinion, lying. And I don't like being lied to. I don't like being fooled. If you want to throw on a show and say it's a play and say you're acting, okay, good. Tell me. But when you're sitting there saying, no, this is the truth, and it's an outright lie to me based off of the evidence that I've heard, then I'm going to stop believing pretty much anything you have to say after that.
Yeah, some things are harder to believe than others.
So yeah, and I think Michael, if that's really what you feel within, like that wasn't right and it was false for you, then that's totally you listening to your inner, guidance.
I caught on to that during that podcast. I caught on to that immediately, and I didn't want to say anything out of respect for her being on there. And I kind of kick myself now for not saying anything. But I'm not the type of person that, like even in my professional life, that will embarrass somebody in front of other people if I found out that they were, not or misleading. I'll definitely correct later if I have to with my clients, but like I don't like to have that confrontation of embarrassment. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know what? The whole point of this podcast, the whole point of Brian and I being on this was to actually call people out like that. And even with like sometimes within our own personal group, our little chats that we do back and forth between all four of us, we like to call each other out on stuff all the time. And yet the next day we're fine with each other, but we call each other out all the time. And that's the way I should have acted within that podcast.
Yeah, and I think that if you had asked, you could have asked in a way that wasn't disrespectful, like you could have asked her about that. Well,
I asked her, I'm like, or it would have been like, I think you're lying, so I don't know what else to say.
But I will say
I'm not sure what I would be asking.
Yeah, and I will say this. I actually don't agree that that's a reason to disbelieve her. And the reason why, and I'm not telling you not to believe what you're believing. I think you should stay with what you believe. But I'm just going to give you my perspective on it, is that when you're channeling, that there's got to be, even though you're kind of like stepping out of the vessel in a way and allowing another consciousness to come in, your consciousness is still present. You still know what's going on, even though the human aspect is maybe not there. And so for her to use that term, like a revolving door, when she was lucid and out of the channeling, to me, could have been her just pulling something out of her consciousness without even knowing that she was saying it. And I feel like that is a very likely possibility to explain why she said that when it was said in your channeling session. Whether that's true or not, that remains to be seen. But that was what my initial thought would be, is that it's there. Like, I mean, and we think about what Augie just talked about on last week's episode. If you think it, you've put it out there into the universe. And so, like, Brian.
Well, according to Augie, we didn't think anything. Somebody's inputting our thoughts into our brain like we're just some sort of friggin' avatar, which I don't really care for either. But like, if it's there,
no. But what I'm talking about is like, how Brian, you were saying like, some people will come up with an idea and then someone's already put it out there, and it's like, because as soon as you start thinking about something, it's already getting projected into the consciousness, and so whether it was you originally thinking it, or maybe because it was in the consciousness, you're now thinking it. I don't know, but I think it would go for the same deal with the whole channeling, which I understand is far-fetched for Michael to understand, or Brian.
It's very far-fetched. This would not pass in court.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But I think we've talked a lot about the discernment muscle too, and just, there's plenty of valid psychics and channelers, and I think Michelle Paisley-Reed is definitely a valid channeler, but that doesn't mean that everything that she tells you is going to resonate with you, or you're going to feel like it's truth, like Nicole said. And maybe, sometimes we're maybe just not ready to hear that information, or it's not what we need to hear right now. It doesn't mean that the psychic or the channeler on the other side isn't giving you what they believe is truth, or what they feel is coming in.
Yeah, but when you and I are two different mindsets for, you believe that there can be a psychic. I don't. So if you sit down in front of a psychic and the psychic tells you information, you're going to believe it. If that same psychic with the same abilities sits down in front of me and tells me information, I'm not going to believe it from the word go. And I think for Michael, speaking for him here, I don't think she had a chance. I don't think she had a chance to be something, to prove something to him, because at our core, we just don't believe it. We just don't believe that this thing can happen and that somebody's going to give you this information and it's going to come through.
I actually felt very open to the idea of channeling when she was going through it, when she talked to me after the channeling session was done, and then I heard what she said, it just completely. I mean, I think what you're saying, Brian, is it's on thin ice. The belief.
Yeah, it was on thin ice
And
from the beginning.
it was on thin ice, but everything on this podcast for me, and I would imagine yourself as well, Brian, is on thin ice. And so the ice broke definitely, and that was it. And
But
so
I'm
it's like,
also hearing you say she kind of set that up for you by going out of her way to say, when I'm channeling, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
So she put that in your mind.
Yeah, she in a way she kind of screwed herself over. If she said, "Oh, sometimes I can remember, sometimes I don't."
Yeah.
I would
So
have
if she
been
would
okay
have
with
said
that.
that, you would have had a different experience. So I mean, it's just interesting that just a few words, the power of just a few words can change your perception.
I will say this.
Absolutely.
I will say this. And then I want to actually touch on this for you, Michael, why I actually think it's a cool thing of why you're feeling this way. But I've had channeling sessions with someone else before who goes under and doesn't know anything that's going on. However, towards the end, as it's getting ready to close out, he does have some visions that he remembers and what he sees, and he'll tell me about them. And they often relate to what has been channeled, but it's right at the end. And he's like, this is what I just saw. And then that's it. And so he's picking up on something. He doesn't know what it is. He has no idea what he said to me. The whole thing's recorded. And so there's that element. And that's why I think that because what she said to you about the revolving door was towards the end.
Nicole, if you go back though, after she said the revolving door, she stopped. She stuttered. She got freaked out because she realized she showed her card.
Okay, so you know what? You know what's going to happen?
You go back and listen to it. Because I not rewatched, whatever, reheard the podcast, and and I wasn't fooled. I'm like, yep. She caught herself in her mind, and she got distracted.
So every listener is going to go back and listen to that right now.
and they friggin' should.
But here's what I think is actually really cool for you, is that what could be a possibility is that you really aren't meant to believe in this channeling stuff. For whatever reason on your path, it's just not part of it. And your soul is asking you to depart channeling as a means for you to get answers.
Okay. I mean, that's one way to spin it.
I mean, it's a possibility.
It's a thought. I really don't like this. You're predisposed to go through these things in life. I'm not on that bandwagon either yet, or maybe never will. But it's a thought.
Yeah.
Was that episode 9?
10.
I think it was 9 or 10.
10. So for everyone, if you want to go back and listen, and you know what? Listen to it.
No, 10 was Heather Sartain. 9 was part 2 of Michelle.
Okay. Yeah, there's 2 episodes in a row, part 1 and part 2.
So our listeners can go back and listen to episode 9 and see if you agree with Michael or if you have other insights into it. That would be cool to hear about.
Yeah, so if you can find different ways to spin this like Nicole, give her a break.
Hey, there's multiple ways of looking at this. But I mean, at the end of the day, Michael, you need to believe whatever it is that you need to believe in. It's not my job or Lisa's job or Michelle's job to convince you otherwise.
I definitely think, not to change the topic, but I'm going to throw one more in there, and I'm pretty sure that most of us will agree. What's the woman with the pendant?
Lisa? Renee?
Lisa.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Lisa Allen.
I'm sorry, Allen.
I think we've pretty much moved her to the side of, things didn't come true, so
that was a hard
it is
one.
what it is.
We had a lot of internal
that was
discussion.
the one podcast. That was the one podcast where I wish everything was coming true. I really wanted her to be right.
Yeah, and I don't think she was trying to deceive anyone. I really truly believe that she's had instances where everything's worked out. Obviously, that's why she has clients, and it's working out. But for all of us, nothing's come true. So we'll be upfront and honest about that.
Yeah, I mean, I still got a year and a half for mine or whatever, so I'll let you guys know in about a year and a half. But
On our third
Well,
anniversary.
Brian and I have been talking about moving, but she still missed the mark. But we're talking about it.
We did start talking about moving.
which we brought up a lot, and Nicole, you definitely agree with this. Is like you got to be very careful with anybody in this world that will give you predictions down to like especially time related predictions.
Yeah, that's tough.
I just don't think it's a good art to get into. I think you're putting in a lot of risk on pretty much being debunked. I mean, how often do us four, we hear, and for that matter, everybody in the audience, we see things like, oh, this person thinks the world's going to end on April 21st because of some sort of numerical calculation with, Moses or whatever. I don't know. And all of us are like, whatever. And we roll our eyes and walk past it because there's so much BS predictions out there.
Well, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say, and I was thinking about this, about what I've learned, the one thing that I've really learned in these 52 episodes that we've done, which kind of explains what you're talking about, Michael, but is Marina Jacobi. And I've learned so much about the timelines and jumping timelines. And I can see now how hard it would really be for someone to predict an exact timing of something. Not that I don't believe that they didn't see it exactly that way, and that maybe it actually did happen that way on a different timeline. And maybe you just jump timelines and things are different. So I don't necessarily think that these people are wrong, but on the timeline that I ended up being on, it didn't happen that way. So
yeah, and also one of the things that's talked about a lot within like the spiritual community right now is that because there's so much more intense energy coming into the planet, which people talk about the Schumann resonance and energy spikes and things like that, and there are people who talk about the energy waves, that time is actually speeding up in a sense of you can literally change the timing of something so quickly, whether it's a positive outcome or a negative outcome, just from certain choices, thoughts, the way you're acting, things that you say, that can really manifest a lot faster. And the higher you vibrate, like the higher your frequency is, the quicker you start manifesting things. And so if you're not careful about certain things of your thoughts, words, actions, that you could easily manifest something undesirable much faster than before. And so there is that aspect that falls into it. I'm not trying to make excuses for anyone. I'm just really trying to throw out all the information that I know that could be part of the reasons why this is happening. So,
well, speaking of thoughts, we just talked about this last week. Napoleon Hill said thoughts are things, and it just made me think of Augie Nost, who's been on twice, and what a cool guy he is.
Love him. Definitely one of my favorite guests. That was the thought that,
and it's now become a thing. Right,
thoughts are things.
Oh, I was going to say, I get where Brian's going. I totally was like waiting for Brian to finish his thing, and then I realized exactly what he was talking about. I'm slow. I'm on the slow bus today. Never mind me.
Now I'm confused.
I was talking about thoughts and how quickly you can manifest an undesirable outcome, just as an undesirable outcome as much as a positive one, depending on your thoughts. And he was just talking about thoughts. Yeah.
Well, okay. And that is something that I have has changed within me in the past year, is definitely positive versus negative as far as your thoughts go. It's definitely made a huge difference interpersonally within my life. And I'm not going to sit there and say it's a spiritual thing. I'm just sitting there saying it's good for you. It's good for you to have positive thoughts to yourself and to other people. It's just good.
Feels better.
Yeah, it feels better. And so when you do, you'll see a negative person in your life, and you realize, why the heck are you hanging around this person?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you can't fix them or help them become more positive, if they're, I hate to say it, lost cause of negativity, yeah, I'm walking away. I hate this. I'm selfish
No,
that
that's
way.
actually an act of
It's not
self-love.
selfish.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Yeah.
It is healthy. I think that that's something that maybe we think, oh, we're not being nice. We have to be nice. We have a duty to this person. We, should help them. Maybe it's friends or even family members. And we put all this time and energy into them, and they never change. They really don't. You care more about their well-being than they do,
Yeah.
And at some point you do have to just love yourself and walk away.
Or if you hang around them, it reminds me of, this is kind of like a good segue into our future podcast of What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams.
I have.
Have you guys ever seen that?
Yeah, good movie.
Yeah, when he follows his wife after she committed suicide
Mhm.
into the depths of hell, he's like, out of love for this person, I'm just going to continue and remain in hell with you. Where we're like going, no, get back out there in the in the color crayon world or whatever and enjoy. That's what we're kind of saying here, instead of just following someone into and becoming negative.
Yeah,
with
and I mean,
them.
if you remember when John Mathis was on, he, through his past life regression or soul retrieval and starting to heal himself, like in past lives before they were going to their death, basically, that started to change some of his choices in following lifetimes. Like he was talking about him remembering or being at one of his lifetimes on the Titanic, helping people come off the ship, that he started to realize that he wasn't going to leave himself to go down with the ship, that he went on the lifeboat. And one of the things that,
Right.
we're taught, one of the falsities that we're taught about love through this matrix, through society, through this tainted version of love, is that love is sacrifice. And there is nothing loving about sacrificing anything. It's been taught to us to believe that. And so many of us really do believe that. And it's hard to pull away from that because you feel like it's such an honorable thing. But, when you look at, like, for instance, with John's story, he realized his worth, and he realized that he was worth, that he could do more for himself and more people by him still living on. And I think that, why was he not able to, in the beginning, see how much he was helping just by getting people on the boat? What a beautiful thing that was. But it wasn't enough until he sacrificed his own life. And then to start to realize that that wasn't necessary, that he did as much as he could, and then it was time to, take care of himself too. And you just go back to airplanes. You have to put on that mask first before you put it on your child. Because if you don't have air, how are you supposed to help them? And so this is one of, like, the fundamentals that we really need to break free of in our belief system, that love is sacrifice, and it's not.
I think that premise is used to control as well. Whether it be in a relationship and the way relationships maybe used to be set up, and believing that you can just be treated a certain way, or that you have to sacrifice. I mean, I have a friend that is very, very religious, and her sister's husband was very abusive to her, and she would speak of it as if, well, this is the cross that she has to carry in this life, like that she just has to get beaten by her husband, like that's a good thing. Well, they're married, and marriage is forever, and this is just the cross that she carries. And I'm like, no, that's just wrong. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
some
I
people
agree.
like to use that to control.
And love is sacrifice. I mean, I think we have all heard that since
Yeah.
pretty much day one.
Yeah.
Love
You
is
hear it
love
from
is
your
selfish,
parents.
everyone.
So what
Love
I've
is
done,
selfish.
what I've given up to, be here for you, and like all those. I know I heard it, but like we're.
I mean, sorry.
No, I was just
go
going
on,
to say,
Nicole,
I've
go
been
ahead.
taught that belief since a young child. Like I have early memories of it from being a child.
I sacrificed a lot with my last relationship, and it destroyed me for a long time. So I mean, like there's truth just in my past, and when I probably should have been more about I need to take care of myself. I need to make sure I take care of myself from this. Instead, it hurt me for many years. What happened? So I can completely understand this too. Look, I learned something new in today's podcast.
And I think, I think this is something we've all really learned this year. Like, even if we maybe kind of already knew it, but really I think we got like a good dose of it this year past. For me personally, had to walk away from some relationships, and I didn't want to. For the longest time, I put them off, and I've done this in my past too with other people. And it's because I feel guilty. You feel like you're abandoning someone, or you feel like you're, like you said, you feel selfish, like you're only looking out for number one. And the reality is that I think it was a good move for me and like these other people, but it's hard to know that in the moment. And I can speak from my own experience this year, since like, stepping away from certain people that may have, not like been the best positive influence on my life, that it's completely changed. Like my life has just completely changed in ways that are completely tangible to me, that I can't deny. So and as a result, I'm so much happier and I feel so much more fulfilled, and I'm able to use that energy and offer it in service to others who are looking for the help. And so it all starts to build and expand when you do look after taking care of yourself in a way that's healthy.
I was just going to say, I think about that in just my long ass marriage that I had. and just the way that we were with our kids. And I truly believe, I had to sacrifice for my family. I had to sacrifice for my kids to have everything that they wanted and needed, and for my husband to have everything that he wanted and needed. Yet I didn't get what I wanted and needed, and I think that now looking back, there is definitely a way where you can, have a family and have children and not necessarily sacrifice. I mean, obviously you have to, come home and put your kids to bed and feed them and bathe them. And, these are the things that you have to do, but that's done out of love, not out of sacrifice. You still have to remember that you're a person that has needs and wants and desires. And, if that means getting help with a sitter, or, whatever it is, you have to take care of yourself. Yeah,
like what would you say to someone who's listening, like for instance, who may be in that boat, who's a parent and just, not taking any time for themselves and trying to do everything they can for their kids, because they just want to be the best parent possible, and they believe that requires all the sacrifice of their needs. Like, what would you say, given everything that you've learned?
I would say honor yourself, and that you want to be, kids learn, through, we've talked about this, kids learn through actions and examples, not from what you tell them. And you want for your kids to be a well-rounded, balanced person. So you need to be that for them. And it does, so, you don't have to be there 100% of the time. You can have a life too. And I think you can show them that, you have mommy time, and you have mommy and daddy time, and you have family time. And, that there's sometimes you can't always be there, and it's real life, because these are the things that we do to take care of ourselves and teach them that it's important to take care of yourself as well as others. I know my kids actually, when they got to be teenagers, were the ones that brought it to my attention, that said, Mom, like, just go do something like for yourself. All you do is go to work, come home, clean, and do something. They actually noticed it. And, so it's just, that's what my advice would be is, take care of yourself, be a well-rounded person. And there's ways to incorporate your kids into that as well. You don't have to always do things that they want to do things that you want to do, but do things they want to do too.
That's great advice.
So, yeah, if I had to do it over, it would be a lot different. My kids turned out great. Luckily, they're a lot smarter than I am. They figured out things I didn't teach them. But I would definitely take more time for myself.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Self-love, you know what is the most important thing I've learned on this podcast? Yeah. You have to love
Michael
yourself.
Loves that.
I used to love.
Stupid cliche, but I'll give it a little credence, saying that you have to think of yourself. I think the word love is what we find confusing, because there's so many definitions of love, and so it's like you got to take care of yourself, which is a form of love, in my opinion. But I can understand it a little bit more today than I did about a year ago. That's for sure.
I wanted to mention, totally different subject, but something else that I learned that I think about often now is this idea of different timelines. And I know, Nicole, we've talked about this, but I feel like I've experienced some examples of it recently, where you remember something one way, and somebody that you were with remembers it completely differently. And I, they talk about this, say, like, an investigator, a detective, or police that come to a scene, and they interview all these people, and they get 30 different stories and different views, and nobody's on the same page. And it's been actually kind of liberating, because now, instead of feeling like, no, I know that that's the way it happened, I'm right, you're wrong, I was there, this is what happened, I now feel like, you know what, there's a really, really good possibility that it happened for you one way and it happened for me another. That there's these timelines that could have been jumped, and maybe in one timeline, like, you're still on that other timeline and I moved to another one, or vice versa. And it's helped me just kind of let go, like, of the Matrix a little bit, where I just let go and I'm okay with it. I'm like, I'm okay to be wrong, because I truly believe that you probably did see it that way.
I'm glad you can let go, because I was right about that.
I know. But you talked about that with a friend of yours who said, is it like, it's like the Mandela effect almost, like, you thought something was this way, and then all of a sudden it's a different way.
Me?
Yeah, weren't you telling me about someone who you had that conversation with?
Maybe it was on another timeline. I don't.
Maybe it was.
No, but I totally get what you're saying, though, Lisa. Yeah. Marina really helped me understand timelines, because up until that point, I just didn't understand the concept. It was very hard for me to understand jumping timelines. What does that mean? I really couldn't grasp it until I studied her videos, like, back to back, just watching them, like literally like Netflix binging. But it's really helped me understand not just how parallel timelines work and how you can jump a timeline, but also the power behind you creating the timeline that you want to jump into. And I think, I was just talking to you about this the other day, that using this idea of projecting whatever reality you want into your hologram, as Marina would say, that I've been using that now. That's actually what my meditations focus on. I kind of moved away from, like, just kind of sitting still and seeing what happens, like what comes in, and using that time where I know my vibrations going up. I can feel the energy in my body just moving. I feel my hands buzzing and heating up, and like all this energy pulsing out of them, that I know I'm in a very good place to start manifesting stuff. So I'm kind of now using my meditations as like a vehicle, an engine to start creating everything that I want to bring into my life. And I go into this mode of literally putting a movie in my mind of what I want to see as my reality. And I go in and I literally am having conversations with people that I know. I hear the music in the background. I smell whatever it is. Like maybe I'm in a kitchen cooking a meal. Like everything I am so aware of. It's literally like watching my own movie of what I would like to bring into my now. And it's having very profound positive effects in my current now, bringing so many incredible opportunities and encounters with people that some might call it luck. Some might call it like woo woo. I don't know, but it's like, whatever it is, it's working. I love it. I'm happier than ever. And so I'm just going to keep doing it. So I think it's great.
Who calls it woo?
Michelle started. She's the first one I heard say that.
Yeah, and a couple other guests have said it as
fringe.
Well. But like for me, I think that has been definitely understanding timelines, understanding what zero pointing energy means and how to do that, and then really taking that quantum manifestation protocol and putting it into effect into my now through my meditation practice has really transformed my realities and what I'm actually able to manifest, going beyond the money structure, that we talked about, which I think is so cool.
The other thing that I really learned was from Corinne.
Yeah, Corinne.
Or is it Corinne or Corinne? Corinne, when she spoke of, I was having a hard time understanding when we first started talking about, reincarnation, all these different lives and how old our souls are. And, because a lot of this stuff is new to me as well. And trying to understand, if your soul is so old and you've gone through all these experiences, how come in this life, I'm not doing more, have more gifts and more talents and, helping, millions of people or something. And she really helped me understand that, we come in sometimes to help even clean up bloodlines, but that we're playing this part, and this part that we're playing really has our past experience really doesn't have anything to do with it. Like Brian, for example, when he had his Akashic records read and was told, he had been a devout monk, for numerous lifetimes, and in this lifetime, he just wanted to experience, the secular life and whatever, and being an asshole.
Yeah. We love you, Brian.
Nice asshole. But that whether he, his current beliefs right now and his knowledge of spirituality, that seems to be, with all due respect, less than ours, like the knowledge that we have, isn't truly his soul's path. That's just the role he's maybe playing in this life for whatever reason, to learn what it is that he needs to learn. He can't have the memories of that. And that was really eye-opening to me, that episode, and her explaining some of that. It really helped me look upon people in this world completely differently. It took not judging to a whole new level for me. Like I can look at a crowd of people who maybe I judge as, oh my gosh, like these people just really don't get it, or they're so not awake, Yeah. So, I look into a crowd of people or whatever, and where normally maybe it was hard for me not to be judgmental for, maybe where they're at in their life, or, what I think is like, oh my gosh, you're clueless. I don't see it that way anymore. I'm just like, wow, like this could be this oldest, most advanced soul ever who just came into this experience to experience that, to experience being in this family maybe that didn't have a lot of education or whatever the case may be. And it's just,
I completely
that part was
agree.
really
And I think
fascinating to me.
that's really cool. And I think it's something really important to keep in mind, especially anyone who's, working on their spiritual path, so to speak, that to get caught up in the ego, it's very easy. It's very easy. I know I've done it. I'm sure you've done it, Lisa. And it's like, the more knowledge you get, or maybe the more experience, you may think, oh, yeah, it's not that you think that you're better than someone, but you may feel like you might know more, or that you just maybe don't want to, I don't even know what the right word is to use, but
To be perfectly honest, standpoint, it's just like I'm
yeah,
smarter
or
than you.
I'm more advanced.
I mean,
I'm
I
more
know
advanced
more
than
than
you,
you
or
do.
something along the.
Yeah.
I'm more evolved than you. Like, I don't know. It's very easy to get into that trap if you allow your ego to manipulate you through this journey. And so it's always important to really kind of check in and humble yourself and really stay on top of that, because you see it all the time. You see it all the time. And you're absolutely right, because I think even with relationships, if you're dating someone who maybe is either more like on the outside looks more evolved than you spiritually, or you're the one who's more evolved, you may look at that person like, oh, what am I doing with this person? They're not right for me. This isn't me. But it could be that either one of you is there to there's so many there's an infinite amount of possibilities of why that's happening, but it could be that the person who seems less evolved is actually the more evolved, and perhaps this lifetime they're not meant to awaken, and they're just meant to live out this life for whatever reason in that capacity. Or maybe they will awaken and eventually surpass the person in perceived evolvement, which I think we've met people who feel that way, where they may have been in a relationship where they were maybe the less evolved spiritually and end up having growth that surpasses their partner. And that can happen at any point, at any time, in multiple ways, like you can flip and take, one might be the driver and one might be the follower, and vice versa. And so I think that's really.
And then there's the 50% chance that doesn't even happen, and that we're all just living these individual lifetimes, and that there's no connection,
no hologram.
We're not from other planets. We're not starseeds. We're just here. We're here. We're actual beings. We're not holograms. We're not on a computer.
I frankly like
not
that
a video
better
game. We're just here.
As far as theories go.
I don't like it better, but I will say that that's a possibility.
I don't like it better either. It makes me think of the Beauty and the Beast, and the old lady that comes to the door and tries to give the rose. And I don't actually remember the story all that well, other than that she was the beauty, right? Like, you thought that she was someone else, and she ended up being the one that was the beauty.
Yeah.
So you just never know. I mean, these are, like we like to call these meat suits of ours. They're disguising our true identity and our true power and beauty and
I think that's what's so cool about this whole podcast, is that, by exploring all these topics and ideas and talking to different guests, is that, like Brian was saying in the beginning, we get to reflect on ourselves in whatever capacity it means for us. Everything we're going to absorb in different ways, whatever is more meaningful to us and it pertains to our life in whatever capacity is going to be most beneficial. Then I think, that's what it's all about, that we get to understand ourselves better and get closer and closer to who we truly are versus what, society has taught us to be, or what our family wanted us to always be, or project that, we get to get closer to who we truly are. And I think that's really cool about it all.
I'm proud of this podcast. I'm excited to see what the next year brings and how we evolve and how our guests evolve and what new things Brian and Michael learn.
I'm excited to not see anything happen that you guys think is good.
I'm excited.
All right,
for you guys to have guests that there's nothing that Brian and I could say because we're just programmed idiots.
Well, it's been fun. It's been a great journey so far, and 1 year in, and I'm really excited about where this has gone to, the guests that we've had on, the topics we've discussed, and some of the conversations we've had have been quite hilarious. So I always like the entertainment aspect as well. And to all of our listeners, speaking of, going down the road, I have an announcement to make for the Waves of Light cruise that we're all going to be on. We just announced that we have Michelle Walling and Greg Prescott of In5D who are joining us. Michelle's going to be one of our keynotes, and Greg is doing a special appearance. He'll be doing a workshop with Michelle on relationships, I believe. And so they're coming on the cruise with us, which I'm really excited about, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So tickets are still available. If you haven't gotten yours yet and you still want to, you can do that by going over to the website wavesoflight.org. And I know that a few of our guests are going to be on that cruise, and it'll be fun to do a podcast with them all in the same place. And also some of our listeners are going to be on that cruise. So you're going to have an opportunity.
And I'll be signing autographs. I'll be doing the 3D portion of the cruise.
I think we're all going to be at the bar.
The bar.
Let's make sure that's said. But everyone, if you're a listener and you're coming on the cruise or you want to, you can be part of our episode as well. We're going to have mics that go around and ask questions. You can share your insights and all that. It'll be super fun. And you get to hang out with us and drink. And, that'll make Brian really happy because he can't wait to sign autographs. So...
I think he's going to print some headshots.
Yeah, I'll have pictures of my ego.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for being with us for the year. And we're excited to take this to a whole nother level in this next year coming up. So again, if you guys have any stories that you'd like to share with us, any topic ideas, please send them into our email, info@enlightenup.us. And please keep sharing us with your friends and family and coworkers and whoever else you think is interested, because we just want to say thank you to all of you who are doing that, because we can't believe the growth that we've had over the last couple of months. It's just really starting to blow up, and we're so appreciative of all of your contribution to that. So thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. And till next episode. That was great, guys. Thanks for being around for the year. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. We love you.
Love you. Bye.